Sri Lanka's most powerful news brand.
Hello, good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1. I'm Nadim Majid.
And I'm Azra Hassan. Now, before we get into our stories in detail, let's take a look at the headlines.
Central Bank says proceeds on account of handing over Hambantota report received. More allegations made regarding deforestation similar to Wilpattu. Elections Commission sets example on how to promote the use of public funds. State Minister Lakshman Yapa hints of an unexpected crossover. On Boxing Day, 13 years ago, a magnitude 9.0 earthquake struck in the deep seas off the coast of the Indonesian island of Sumatra. Moments later, strong waves made their way towards the coast of the country and claimed the lives of more than 30,000 people within a matter of minutes. What was termed as the world's worst train disaster, the wreckage was evident from among the debris caused by the massive waves. 1,270 people who were aboard the train when the waves struck Paralia died, while another 141 remain unaccounted for. Just as it did 13 years ago, engine number 8050 set off from the Fort railway station towards Mathura at 6:55 this morning from platform number 5. Just as 13 years ago, the train was packed with travellers who had different destinations in mind. The Amarasena Nanekkara family from Tihagoda Mathura were aboard the train today. Amarasena Nanekkara, his wife who works at the Sri Lanka Transport Board, and 3 young daughters had come to Colombo to visit a relative in 2004. Today, their destination was home in Mathura, and it was the same 13 years ago. But 13 years ago, the unexpected happened.
We got on top of the train compartment. I took my 3 children and my wife with me. 10 minutes later, we saw the waves as high as 30 feet. It hit the train compartment and toppled it. It stopped near a house like this. We were helpless. All 11 of us climbed onto the roof.
The 3 girls who survived the tsunami are now 3 young women serving their country. The eldest is a teacher, while the second is a software engineer. The third is pursuing higher studies.
It was an unforgettable experience, but this gave us the strength to face any challenge in life, especially in my higher studies and university period.
Amarasena Nanekkara, his wife and 3 daughters were fortunate 13 years ago to survive the waves. But many others aboard the train were not that lucky and never made it out of Paralia alive. Today, relatives took part in the train journey in memory of their lost loved ones. Many events were organized across the country in remembrance of the lives lost from the 2004 tsunami. The President was among those who observed 2-minute silence at 9:25 this morning. As 13 years passed since the tsunami, we observed how attention towards preventing disasters had dropped gradually. Following the disaster, many programs were implemented to ensure such a massive loss of life never happens again. Among them were the tsunami early warning towers and signboards which depict what measures need to be followed to escape disaster. Sadly, only a limited number of towers are in operation, while the rest have not been repaired following installation. This is the fate that has befallen the signboards that were placed to show what the people need to follow at a time of disaster.
Few years after tsunami, there were boards displayed instructing people which route to run if it happens again. Those boards are not there anymore. We have a lot of tourists here in Polhena. There is nothing to guide them to safer areas. They do not even know if the boards were there.
Today, as we mark 13 years since one of the worst disasters to strike Sri Lanka, is it not important to keep in mind a disaster can happen at any given time and it is important to be prepared?
Back to the news. The report of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into bond issuances will be submitted to President Maithripala Sirisena in the coming days. Here are some of the views that have been expressed on the subject in the political theatre.
The government was formed on the 8th of January and the first theft took place on the 27th of February. It did not even take 50 days. The father-in-law became the governor of the central bank and the son-in-law gained profits. The profit for 2015 was 5.3 billion rupees. 5.3 billion. Before Ranil Wickremesinghe sat on the Prime Minister's chair, the UNP was unable to pay the electricity bill for its headquarters, Sirikota. Come the general election in August, do you remember how many TV advertisements were published by the party which was unable to pay the electricity bill? A 15-second advertisement cost about 150,000 rupees. How many such advertisements were broadcast? How many newspaper advertisements were published by the UNP government which was unable to pay its electricity bills? So did they receive Aladdin's wonderful lamp when Ranil Wickremesinghe sat on the Prime Minister's chair? What happened here? They used the money stolen from the central bank.
The President has said that a decision will be put to the court. We shall wait and see. Those responsible for the bond scam have been exposed before the entire country. The people are well aware of this because of the media, TV and newspapers. So we shall see what decision the President will take on this matter, either before or after the election.
The President's hopes have been fulfilled. He appointed a commission and that commission has concluded hearing evidence. There was a vast amount of evidence, so they had asked for more time. So they will submit it at the appropriate time. Following this, the President will take a decision. If someone has done wrong, they will be punished. There is no need to worry about it.
Once the Bond Commission report is concluded, they will hold talks and a section of the government will break away. Ministers have resigned. We are totally opposed to the policy of the UNP. We are now standing on the side of the people. It is possible that the President may take over several ministries controlled by the UNP on an agreement that it will be returned.
Just as the bond issue was taken up recently, a presidential commission will be appointed to investigate Air Lanka and Mihin Lanka. This presidential commission too will reveal much information to the country if certain things have happened in the recent past. The President has decided to act with transparency, just as with previous commissions. We are wearing a very clean suit, and in the future we will show that the underwear is also very clean.
The tenure of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into the bond issue will end in 5 days. The people await the decision of the Bond Commission.
The 2015 and 2016 bond scams, the biggest theft in Sri Lankan history. Who should be held responsible for this grand theft? Who caused millions and millions in losses to the country's state banks? Who stole EPF money, the wealth you earned with your own sweat and blood? Who bowed down to fraud and corruption and allowed this massive theft? The entire nation awaits the final report of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry on the issuance of Treasury bonds. The first to expose the bond scam, news first.
The central bank announced $292.1 million has been credited to the US dollar account of the government of Sri Lanka, maintained at the Central Bank of Sri Lanka.
Proceeds from China Merchant Port Holdings Company Limited on account of handing over of operations of the Hambantota port were due to be received by the government of Sri Lanka. The central bank says subsequent to the agreement signed between Sri Lanka Ports Authority and the China Merchant Port Holdings Company Limited, the proceeds were credited to its dollar account.
There have been long-standing allegations that protected sections of the Wilpattu National Park are being cleared to build settlements. Environmental organizations charge that such clearing is also taking place in protected reserves on the borders of the Puttalam district. State Minister Palitha Rajabandara has extended a challenge that he will resign from politics if these allegations are proven to be true.
Environmental organizations allege that these settlements are being built close to the coast in the protected area of Vilpattu, about 10 kilometers towards Eluwa Kuluma in Putlam from Marichakadi in Mana. Several homes built in this area and a new road were declared open on the 10th of September by State Minister Palita Rangibandara.
15 permanent homes have already been built close to the Pukkulam coast right across the Vilpattu Park. On the 24th of December 2010, the Department of Wildlife Conservation addressed a letter prohibiting anyone living in these homes from engaging in fisheries activities or using the fisheries facilities in Palugahature, Pukkulam and Vellamundalam without the fisheries identification card issued by the department. We challenged the Director of Wildlife Conservation to visit the area tomorrow and see for himself that not a single person there has an identification card.
The Wanathavilluwa Administrative Division has 17 Grama Niladhara divisions. The first of these 17 divisions is 634 Pukkulam. Therefore, it is clear that Pukkulam is a settlement. There are 132 families residing here and there are only 2 toilets. Palita Rangibandara came forward to provide at least the minimum facilities to these people. It is against this backdrop that a certain monk and a group from non-governmental organizations are shouting that Pukkulam is being destroyed and that Vilpattu is being destroyed. I call on this monk and those who feed on dollars in the guise of NGOs to come to Pukkulam and prove that even one tree has been destroyed using the political power of Rangibandara. If you prove it, then I will retire from politics for eternity. On the 20th of this month, the Auditor General submitted a report noting that the clearing that is taking place in the Villatikulam Sanctuary, which is part of the Vilpattu National Park, is illegal.
They are destroying these forests, claiming that it is for the welfare of the people. What they are doing is turning this country into a place where people cannot live. This is a racket, and it is politicians that are behind this racket. The politicians pretend that they are giving these to the people, but then they will appropriate the land and use it for hotels and industry. Basil Rajapaksa was also targeting this coastline for a hotel project. As soon as that failed, it was taken over by Malik Samaravikrama. And then on Thursday, they spoke about how they can carve up Vilpattu at temple trees. How can they speak of such anti-state actions at temple trees? We met with the Director General of Wildlife Conservation. We have one thing to say. In the midst of these pressures and the audit reports, the Wildlife Director and officials will resign.
The National Elections Commission convened a media briefing today regarding the upcoming local government elections.
A newspaper headline read, Chairman of Elections Commission says goods can be distributed during the period of the elections. A district secretary said a divisional secretary had brought 45 chicks and if they are not distributed within 45 days, they would all perish. So I told him to distribute them. That is what has been published as the headline. We have stressed it is wrong to distribute goods using public funds or from personal funds. The election period is only a month and a half. You can do good and obtain merits afterwards. I do not understand the situation. I cannot criticize the state policy. Rather than saying the construction of the anechote of a road was done by the allocations of so-and-so, you should say it was done through the public funds, the people's money. We are awaiting for a grace period. The government printer has given us a promise because an extra cost goes for waste paper. We will have a poster which says this construction was done using public funds, therefore there is no affiliation to any political party. That is all we can do. The chairman of the Elections Commission commented on propaganda activity. The elections will be held on the 10th. So from the 7th, it will be a period of silence and political propaganda cannot take place. Results of the postal votes will not be announced separately. The votes will be counted at the centre. Anyone without an accepted and valid identity will not be allowed to vote. 10% of the candidates do not possess a valid identity card. They have produced their passports. The 10% also includes people who have damaged photographs in their IDs. A person without a valid ID will not be allowed to enter a polling station or counting centre. If an affidavit was given, it will be with us. If not, it would have been rejected. We look into 20 things. Some arguments can be accepted. Based on the objections we received, we cannot accept any of that.
A group of UNP activists in the Kalani electorate joined the Sri Lanka Freedom Party today after meeting with President Maithripala Sirisena.
Issuing a release, the President's media division said the group met the President at the President's official residence. Former members of the Kalani Pradesh Sabha, Kanishka Samarasinghe and Norbert Pereira, and former Paligura Urban Councillor Lakshman Pereira were among the long-serving UNP activists who joined the SLFP today. Meanwhile, Muhammad Ismail Muhammad Shafi, who was appointed as the SLFP organizer for the Kandy district, received his letter of appointment from President Maithripala Sirisena today. The Sri Lanka Freedom Party media briefing today was also centred around the upcoming local government elections.
On the 28th, the President will preside over the inauguration of the conference where an agreement will be reached between the parties of the United People's Freedom Alliance on the upcoming elections. The affiliated parties include the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, Thondaman's Party, Ataula's Party, Douglas Devananda's Party and many others. Before we reach an understanding with them, we inform them that they need to be parties that do not have contractors and do not anticipate sand mining permits, quarry permits, filling station permits, bus permits and should not grab state lands. They were in favour of that and agreed to join with us. We are aware several MPs from GLP's party are planning on obtaining the membership of our party. Reports have reached us. They are facing a conflict from within due to various ideologies. They sought an auspicious time for their plans and those will not work out. In that party, the first member is GLP and the second is Basil Rajapaksa. The third is the chairman of the Walalawita Pradesh Sabha who was nabbed for accepting a bribe. People involved in fraud and corruption have obtained membership of that party. The Sri Lanka Freedom Party is contesting directly for 123 Pradesh Sabhas. The United People's Freedom Alliance will contest for 207 local government bodies. I am saying between December 28th and January 10th, there will be an unexpected crossover to the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. A large number of trade union leaders are going to join the SLFP and the President.
Convening a media briefing in Colombo today, the Unity Through Power Devolution movement commented on the broken promises of the present government.
The promise made by the United National Party to end fraud and corruption is not going to happen. The UNPers are frustrated because not a single rogue was captured. The police and the Attorney General's department are under their control. We witnessed how certain MPs and ministers of their own party accuse the leaders of safeguarding the rogues instead of punishing them. What the party members told us was that the UNP will not arrest any Rajapaksas because they were the ones who protected the UNP leadership. The team of the former president still engages in fraud. It is the same within the UNP. There is nothing different between the two parties. The party has not removed any MP or a minister for stealing.
Motorcycles and other equipment were handed over to the police to promote security in tourist hotspots. The equipment was handed over by the Minister of Tourism Development and Christian Religious Affairs with an allocation of 50 million rupees as per a 2017 budget proposal. 20 motorcycles, 4 beach rovers, office equipment, furniture, computers, air conditioners and other material were handed over.
Following up on what he said, another 5 million rupees will be given next year.
50
million was given. What is the purpose? This is an important purpose. The tourist attraction of the country has already passed 2.3 million visitors and the year is yet to be over. Therefore, we are providing the security as he said.
Tonight on our investigative journalism segment Action TV, we ask the question, what is the point of an establishment code if those who violate it do not face any consequences? The purpose of the Establishment Code issued by the Minister of Public Administration under the authority of the Cabinet of Ministers is to ensure discipline in public service. The gravity of this document is well established given that cases that have been filed against senior public officials in the former government for various allegations have been filed on the premise of violations of the Establishment Code. Thereby, if any public official feels that the Establishment Code can be disregarded in carrying out their duties, their suitability for the position they hold should be questioned. The Secretary of the Ministry of Education has been acting in this way since being appointed to the position over a year ago. On the 5th of November, Action TV carried an expose demonstrating the extent to which rules and regulations have been disregarded by the Education Secretary against a backdrop where he had already appointed an individual prohibited from holding any position at any school by the Public Service Commission as the principal of a prominent national school in the south. This latest transgression on the part of the Education Secretary involves allowing the principal of a prominent boys' school in Colombo to engage in a tour of China, disregarding the orders of the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption. The duty that the Education Secretary should have carried out was to interdict the principal in question, since the Bribery Commission had filed a case against him. Action TV pointed out the fact that the Director General of the Commission had informed the Education Secretary in writing of the course of action to be followed with regard to the school principal in question, quoting specific sections of the Establishment Code. The principal, who appeared in court 23 days after the Action TV expose, was released on a surety of 500,000 rupees. It is possible that the Education Secretary saw fit to grant a state-funded overseas trip to such an official because he is both unafraid and unashamed. However, the Establishment Code exists to address such issues and details the actions that are to be taken when a public official goes rogue. In the absence of such action, all that the Public Service Commission has been able to do is to issue letters of kind requests to the Secretary, displaying the Commission's lack of power and independence. Given that the Education Secretary has apparently consigned both the requests of the Public Service Commission and the Director General of the Bribery Commission to the dustbin, there are only two choices before the competent authorities now. 1. Release the Education Ministry from being beholden to the Establishment Code, or 2. Release the Education Secretary from the Ministry. Secretary to the President, once again, this is over to you.
The request made by the attorneys representing the 8 suspects, including 2 Gramaniladaris, who are in remand custody over the killing of the Tusker Galgamedala Putua, to be released on bail, was rejected by the Mahava Magistrates Court today. The case was examined before the Mahava Additional Magistrate and District Judge Rasika Mallavarachi.
Additional Magistrate Mallava Arachi ordered suspects to be further remanded until the 9th of January. He also ordered for the firearm which was allegedly used to kill the Tusker to be directed to the government analyst and for a DNA test to be conducted on the limbs of the Tusker's carcass. Court granted permission for the request made by environmental organizations to present facts today. Deputy Solicitor General Dilip Apiris appeared in court for the rights of the complaint.
And that's the wrap of this edition of Primetime News. For the news system, I'm Azra Hassan.
And I'm Nadim Majid. We leave you tonight with a look at the day's illustrated news by cartoonist Asanka Lambu Hekli. Good night and good luck.